Hi, I'm GM Matthew Sadler.
And I'm WIM Natasha Regan. Welcome to this game in our AlphaZero Stockfish opening series. In this game, it's in English, and AlphaZero chooses to play a slightly unusual opening with two knight f3. So c4, e5, knight f3, and this is rather like a reversed Alekhine. In the game, AlphaZero sacrifices a pawn in order to make black's pieces rather awkward, and we get a position where black's knight doesn't have very many squares. The engines still both consider the position is quite equal, but then we enter into a middle game and an endgame phase where AlphaZero advances its pieces up the board, and again we get to the point where black's knight doesn't have many squares and AlphaZero targets a weak pawn. So AlphaZero's evaluation steadily increases, and AlphaZero brings home the win.
Yeah, it's a very interesting game with a bit of a quirky opening and, well, a very typical AlphaZero squeeze. So good fun to watch. Let's have a look. Okay, let's have a look at this game then. So the game starts with 1c4, as we're used to. e5, which is what Stockfish invariably plays. And now this move knight f3, which is a very unusual move, really. I think it was even tried by Alekhine all those years back, which is quite appropriate considering he also came up with 1e4 knight f6. And there's
I like the look of this, so I think I want to try and play it myself. I used to play the Alekhine a lot.
Indeed, actually, because of you, I played the Alekhines as well, although not with great success, I do have to say. But
you won, didn't you?
Well, I won one game, I think, but so e4, knight d4, and knight c6. This is the normal way to play. And now another unusual idea. I think Peter Schvidler played a game with knight c2. I think it was against Gelfand once, and knight takes c6 has been played a lot. But yeah, I mean, AlphaZero simply plays e3, and this leads to some quite unusual positions. Now, there's two main possibilities that that AlphaZero and Stockfish explored. The one that we'll have a look at in our main game is knight f6, but Stockfish also tried this interesting idea: takes, and queen f6.
Hitting the pawn on d4.
Hitting the pawn on d4, and after d5, bishop c5 is a move, but queen e5 is also a move. There's been a few games like this, also in correspondence as well. And
both sides are breaking all opening principles.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, it's really is quite a strange opening in some ways. But AlphaZero came up with a very interesting little idea here. Went knight c3, knight f6, and then queen e2. So attacking that e4 pawn, bishop d6, protecting the queen. And now this pretty sharp pawn sacrifice d4. It's a very confusing position. I mean, Stockfish has got two possibilities and actually tried both. It could try the calm way is a move like e takes d3, and then they ended up playing this ending, which is seems to be a little edge for white in actual fact. AlphaZero won one of these games. I'll just give a few more moves. Rook e1, knight g4, rook e2. There, bishop f4, threatening bishop takes h7 check in reply to knight f2. F5, bishop c2, bishop f6, c5, and white had well, a little initiative in actual fact. Yeah, I think white's pieces are just that little bit more easily placed, and there's just a little bit more space. So that seemed to be a slight edge for white. In another game, Stockfish actually just took on d4. And then after bishop d2, castles, played b6, and then AlphaZero played this very interesting idea: takes, and g to a pretty sharp game. I mean, black's got an extra pawn, but white's got the two bishops. dark square is a little bit sensitive for black, and well, actually after g5, obviously the e4 pawn is hanging as well. So it's yeah, really very interesting idea. And well, I think the game I saw was drawn after quite a thrilling ending, but you know, very very interesting play. So that was knight takes d4, but knight f6 is perhaps the more normal move. Knight c3, and then knight takes d4. So the English legend Nigel Short actually played this as white. He does play quite a few unusual things as white, and he had a game with bishop b4, queen b3, and I think his opponent took on d4 and took on c3, maybe a little bit early. And after d takes c3, we've got quite an unusual structure, but probably quite a nice one for white actually. You know, two bishops, and well, when black plays d5, you take on d5, and then you've got another c pawn to attack the centre. And AlphaZero also played a similar structure to this, and that seemed to be slightly better for white. But this is probably the most principled continuation from Stockfish, which is to take on d4 and go c6, threatening d5. And if black achieves d5, then you would have thought that equality is not far away. So in this position, AlphaZero keeps on going with d5, just well, preventing black from playing d5. Takes, bishop c5, and then d4. So e takes d3, bishop takes d3. And this is again, you know, an interesting position. I mean, it's not you know, crazy fantastic for white, but there are some quite unusual problems for black to solve. Now, in our games, Stockfish always played queen e7 check, just to try and disrupt white's development. But what was also interesting was to just play castles, and then this move h6, when yeah, I mean, black is preventing bishop g5. It's just going to develop with d6 and the rest of the pieces. I mean, it's quite. It reminds me a lot, actually, of a game I played against Nigel Short, in actual fact, in the British Championship in 1998, I think. So, you know, that's how long ago is that? Oh my goodness, far too long. But we got some sort of structure like this, and I actually had some difficulties with white, in actual fact, finding a proper plan. But I had quite a few engine games from these types of positions, and I mean, I have to say, with white, Stockfish didn't really find very much, but Leela, or Fat Fritz, as I was using at the time, found some quite interesting ideas. So just queen f3 and h3, the bishop comes to f4, and then the knight's coming round to e2, and then to g3, and then maybe to f5. There's also some ideas like playing b3 and then bringing the bishop back c1 to b2. It's quite interesting, actually, and you know, for a small white initiative, it's pretty decent. You know, I was quite impressed with that plan. So I think probably queen e7's a good move there. Queen e2, takes, castles, and now this move bishop g5. And I think, you know, we're really witnessing, you know, just AlphaZero just desperately, or just really trying to keep some sort of initiative going here. And I mean, how do you do that? You do it by attacking pieces. And well, the threat that it's got here is to take on f6 with the bishop. Now, I mean, that's not a horrific threat. I mean, after all, black would. Black would simply have the two bishops and have some freedom as well. But it's also something that you might say, oh, you know, do I really want to allow this? It's a very easy way for white to get, you know, some sort of advantage here. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, these are. I think this was one game that my engines played as well, and well, I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's very much at all for white, but it's not trivial for black either. You know, I mean, there's definite play for both sides. So, you know, I can imagine that you don't really just want to allow that. But I suppose the question is then, you know, what are you going to do? Well, if you want to avoid this threat, you've either got to move the knight or move the bishop. Well, in both cases, the pieces are going to get a little bit loose, and you are sort of, you know, sort of not really getting your development in there. So, Bishop d4 was the main move that Stockfish played. I mean, knight g4 is also very interesting. There's some interesting games in that, and we got this move f3, f6, knight e4. Again, hitting loose pieces. It's getting quite complicated. Takes, knight e5, knight e4, and I mean, this looks pretty promising for white in some ways. Stockfish managed to play, managed to keep the balance quite nicely actually with g4, f takes g4 was the main move, b6, knight d6, trying to keep that light squared bishop blocked in, stopping it from coming to b7. Rook f6, knight e8, incredibly brave play here actually. Knight c7, and remember that knight on c7 because we're going to see a lot of that in the rest of the game. And well, they reached this position, which is equal, I think, objectively, but quite interesting. You know, I mean, black's pieces are quite restricted, and white's got a lot of activity for the pawn. So you know, it's a very interesting idea, and as I said, this is completely unique to AlphaZero Stockfish games. So Stockfish's, I suppose, main idea was bishop d4 in actual fact. So covering the knight on f6 and maybe even threatening bishop c3, knight d5, but otherwise threatening h6. You know, just driving the bishop away. But obviously, you know, the bishop on d4 is loose. So you know, we can play knight b5 there, and after bishop b2, there's rook b1. And yeah, I mean, this is well, a little bit awkward for black. I mean, black's got to decide, you know, where am I going to put this bishop, and well, how am I getting my queenside pieces developed? So Stockfish played, I think, you know, just some very good moves here. Went here, bishop e5, d6. So the bishop on c8 is blocked in. So I mean, in exchange for the you know, for the pawn, then well, for the moment, AlphaZero is managing to keep the queenside pieces bottled up. Stockfish well, attacks the pawn on d6, and we get f4, which is quite an interesting idea there. Now you may wonder why black can't take the pawn on d6. Well, I simply take, and bishop b4, and black's really going to have to contort himself to well, either avoid losing the exchange or avoid losing the knight. I mean, rook e6 is a possibility, but well, maybe we've got rook e1 or f5. You know, it's quite dangerous for black. This not at all what you're looking for. So after f4, Stockfish played bishop f6, knight c7, rook b8. And then this little move, knight a6, obviously b takes a6 allows rook b8, and rook a8 rather. And then in this position, actually my engines are sort of saying there should be a draw by repetition. I mean, I guess the position is still balanced. I mean, you know, white's given up a pawn, you know, black's constricted. I mean, I'd rather be white in these sorts of positions, but you know, you would expect. You know, you would expect that you're somewhere around equality objectively, even if it's, you know, maybe a bit easier for one side to play than the other. But there's a pretty nice move here. AlphaZero plays bishop b4, which looks completely crazy in actual fact. So if b takes a6, though, we'll play bishop a3, and well, bishop e4 is coming in, and it's very hard to well, to avoid the strength of the threat. If you play a5 to meet bishop e4 with bishop a6, I go king d2, and I'm going bishop e4 next move. I mean, again, the engines don't really consider that anything has changed here. They still feel that this is equal. But I don't know. I mean, yeah, those ugly pawns on the A file. That means that the black's extra pawn is not worth very much. And you've got the two bishops, and the black pieces are cramped. I mean, I do like. I'd rather be white in this position. I think it's one of those. So b6 was played to put the bishop on b7, and now knight c7. I mean, it's worth reflecting on that knight on c7 because actually there was a game very recently between Caruana and Alekhine. I think I'm pronouncing his name right. Yeah, Caruana got this sort of knight on c7, and it's a very annoying piece. I mean, first of all, it blocks the c file. And then it also controls the e8 square, so the rook's not going to be able to get there either. So one knight is actually blocking two rooks. It's a very strong piece. So the game continued. Rook d1, bishop b7, bishop b5. That pawn on d7 is a bit sensitive, as we'll see. And king f1. And yeah, I mean, what's the evaluation of this position? Probably even still. White's got a lot more space, and you feel really that if anyone's going to make progress, it's white. But on the other hand, black is very solid. I mean, the game lasts quite a while still. Still another 50 moves, but don't despair. We're not going to go that slowly through them. But what you're going to see is that AlphaZero just takes its time, just extracting small concessions, small weaknesses, and gradually pushing its pawns forward. And somehow Stockfish doesn't manage to find a counter plan or a pleasant way of organising its pieces. So this move, rook a3, is quite nice. I mean, notice as well that the knight on c7 also stops the rook defending it on a8. So knight f5, sorry, attacking the e3 square, rook d2, getting out of a potential fork on e3, also defending g2. And now a5, and that's pretty nice for white in principle, because the b6 pawn is quite a nice target. I mean, you can't target it immediately, but in the future, who knows? So exchanging off the dark squared bishops, I think, is quite pleasant for white, simply because yeah, I mean, that dark square bishop, that was restricting the movement of the rooks an awful lot. And well, I mean, if you're looking at what's the big difference in the two positions, it's the mobility of the rooks. So let's try and make some use of that. So black played knight g7, g3. I mean, I do wonder at some stage whether black should have tried to play a move like f5 and bishop e4 and just tried to put up a barrier on the e file. I wonder whether that might be decent, and then maybe try and play with g5 later. But somehow these moves, I mean, they're not ruining anything, but they're not really. I don't know. You don't really feel that they're doing it for you. So knight f6, rook e7. I mean, that's you do feel like that's a gain for for white to have put a rook on such an advanced outpost, attacking the pawn on d7. So yeah, Stockfish brings the knight round to c5. It's a decent square on an outpost, of course, protecting d7, but it's not really got much scope to go anywhere afterwards. So I don't know. I mean, it's if you just see the game as a whole, then you just see Stockfish getting just shorter and shorter of space. So now AlphaZero starts well, grabbing space where it can, and one big place where it can grab space is on the king side. So g4 and h4. And AlphaZero's now moved up. I think at the start, just when it went knight c7 at the start, we were looking at 53-54% expected score. It's now at 67.5, and it just keeps on rising. So this move g5, we're restricting the opponent's king. We're tying down pawns like f7, g6, and well, now attacking this pawn on f7, and the king moves in. Don't forget that king. That king is going to be very, very important. So black plays h5, stabilising. I mean, there were always threats of taking on h6 and taking on f7. But of course, when you play a move like h5, you really, I mean, you're never ever going to get any counterplay now. You've just got nothing more. King f3, bishop g4, king e3. So I mean the king's just helping to restrict the knight and the bishop, you know, taking a few squares. And what AlphaZero then is going to try and do is going to try now and activate that rook on d4, which is not doing a great deal. Rook c4, just preventing black from even thinking about playing b6 to b5. Rook to c1, knight to d3. Well, you have to play a move somewhere, and you know, Stockfish is just testing out, seeing what's happened. Knight to b2. That's a pretty weird one, I have to say. I don't think that's a move that a human would play, but of course, you know, Stockfish can calculate whether he's losing anything or not. Knight to a4. That knight's maybe aiming at c3. You know, just or it can always come back to c5. Bishop c4. You know, just AlphaZero absorbing it, stopping b5, knight c5, and rook b2. So I think this was really what AlphaZero was aiming for, getting this rook onto b2, attacking the pawn on b6, stopping black from breaking with b6 to b5. And a move like knight b7 is met by rook takes b6, defending the pawn. So it's a little bit tough, you know, already that rook on b8 can't move. So, yeah. I should have asked, really, which piece is not doing the ultimate yet. Well, that's the king. So the king is going to come into e5. There we are. I mean, it does the very useful job of defending the d6 pawn, which really frees the you know, white's rook on e3 at any rate to do some more work. I mean, it's still not clear that this is winning, but obviously, you know, there's only one person here pushing, and that of course is AlphaZero. Sorry, one engine pushing, not a person. So rook d8, bishop b5, a few of these playing around moves now. A4, cementing it, and AlphaZero is up to something like 90% expected score. So it actually, you know, basically saying this position is won. And the well, what is going to be the winning plan? The winning plan is going to be to transfer this knight whilst attacking b6, to transfer the knight round to f6. You've just got to avoid a little trap there. I hope you saw it. Knight f3 was threatening mate. Knight f6, and this a knight is now attacking the pawn on d7. So that pawn on d7 is going. Bishop check, king e4, bishop takes d7. Amazing. That pawn has gone, and I mean, AlphaZero just says this is completely winning. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be very difficult. I mean, I mean, the king's well placed to support the pawn. The other rook's now coming onto the 7th rank, so you know, very big problems. And as if Stockfish didn't have enough problems, it starts having some problems getting its minor pieces out properly. I mean, that bishop on d1 has got nowhere to go, and that knight on f3 is not looking too happy either. So AlphaZero chases it. King e5, 97.5% expected score here. And yeah, I mean, the knight is not looking happy there. It's a bit bizarre, isn't it, that the you know, the black minor pieces are just on the back rank there. Obviously, with Stockfish, you can't take it for granted. I mean, you're not just going to win the pieces just like that. But obviously, after a move like bishop c6, preventing knight f3, they're not going to cause any problems. And, well, White's got ideas like going d7, king d6, king c7. So bishop c2, bishop b5. And bishop c2 was looking maybe for knight d3 check. So bishop b5 counters it. Bishop d1. Black was looking for knight f3 check, but now we play this move d7 and make a square for the king to come into c7. So Stockfish decides, well, that's it. I've got to get rid of that pawn. But of course, it's for a whole piece, and now AlphaZero is just winning. The king comes into d6 anyway. Rook e8, knight e5. A little discovered attack there on the knight. Rook e6 check, king d5. Yeah, if you go knight takes c5, then f takes c5 is just winning. So knight d2, but that knight is doomed, of course. King f8, bishop d7, and rook d3, and Stockfish resigned because the knight on d2 is trapped. So there we are. That was the game. I mean, What did we like about this? Well, I mean I'm just whizzing right past. It's a long game, isn't it? I mean, I think the opening idea is very quirky. You know, it's just two knight f3. I mean, it's not AlphaZero's standard choice. Two g3 is standard, but it obviously thinks that this is interesting enough to be, from time to time, it sort of, comes up to the towards the top of its possibilities to play. And yeah, I mean the concepts that it comes up with are very unusual and but very interesting. I mean it's quite funny, these sort of positions, because in the good old days, I would have looked at a position like this and said, oh, come on, I'm not going to play just a position like this where the queens have been exchanged. There must be some attacking possibility earlier. But when you've analysed with engines, well, as much as modern players have, then well, so many of these sharp variations early on have been neutralised, and it's finding chances in positions like this that's really the key. And that's of course what Magnus Carlsen does so fantastically, manages to find ways to to create play. And well, you see AlphaZero doing exactly the same here, because a little threat, putting a positional threat on black and making black doubt a little bit whether black wants to allow that, and then when black takes action to avoid it, a sharp pawn sacrifice, and all of a sudden you've got a very unclear and complicated position where white sacrificed a pawn and black's completely gummed up. So, but I really thought that the way that AlphaZero played there was pretty exceptional. To move from this position and just gradually move forward, keep control, not give black the hint of a chance. Really, it was quite exceptional. And I mean, I think I really do think that at some stage here, black should have been looking to try and establish an outpost on e4, a bishop supported by a pawn on f5. That really does seem to me to be the best thing to do. As it was, yeah, Stockfish didn't ruin anything, but just ended up playing its knight around without making any sort of gains whatsoever. And it's not very easy to see how you'd improve your position. But if there's one thing that AlphaZero, I think, does better than any other, machine out there, it's improve its position. Just find ways to squeeze just that little bit more out of its rooks and its pawns and its bishops. And yeah, I mean that was just that led to a really stunning win. So there we are. I mean, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope maybe you can use this idea in your games. As I said, very, very few games, and especially 4e3 has barely been played at all. So yeah, I mean, I hope you enjoyed that. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please subscribe. If you haven't looked at Game Changer, our great book, then well, do have a look, because there's so much wonderful AlphaZero stuff in that book. And well, otherwise, keep on watching. We've got a lot more interesting stuff planned. Okay, thanks very much for watching.